Welcome back. This is Professor Homa. I'm going to try to wrap this up with part 3 of offset paths for computer graphics. And in this demo, we'll work with doing the same thing we did here with offset paths to get this effect that we have on the sharks type. Except we're going to do it with arched text. And just some of the initial steps are going to be a little different. So I'll go over making arched text and then how to convert it to offset paths. And I'll try to do this as quickly as I can. And I won't even start typing again. Remember, this is text already, so I can't, or this is paths. Remember, we created outlines, so I can't change this. But I did make a copy of this sharks type over here, and I'm going to option drag it, and I'm going to put it up here, and I'm going to highlight over it, and just type California. And I'll try to spell it right since I misspelled it on that other sheet that we have, if you notice. But I'm going to use this type, and I'm going to arch it first. I'm not going to do the offset paths, then arch it. I'm going to do it first. So what I'm going to do here is go up to Effect, and I'm going to use Effect Warp. And there's all kinds of different warp effects you can use. And I'm just going to use the first one called Arc. And if you're not sure what it does, hit the preview button, and you can see there's Arc, and it's kind of going up above my screen. And if you go, adjust it all the way, it makes a circle. I'll scroll up a little so you can see that, but it makes a circle, and if you're kind of in the, closer to the middle, it's going to be straight, and you could go any distance in between to adjust how much that arc is. So it does 50 by default. I might just do a little less than that. I might do like 40, and I could hit OK. Now notice that it's an effect. This is a temporary effect. You'll still see the text line straight, so it's not bending the text or anything. And where this effect is, if you use your appearance palette. Here's my appearance palette over here, and you can see it says warped arc or warp arc. And if you need to edit your arc, you just click on it here, and it brings up warp options, and you adjust it. If I wanted to put it back to 50, I could hit OK, and that would change it. If I didn't like the warp, I would just go over here and I hit the trash can and I delete it. And I'll delete it right now, and I'll do it again. Remember, Effect, Warp, and then do Arc, and 50, I'll hit OK. And there it is. So this is a temporary effect. So this will affect some of the steps that we do. So our next step that we did when we used straight text, if you remember, was after we typed the text, was create outlines. Now, the problem with creating outlines, I'll just show you this real quick. If we go type create outlines, you can do it, but it actually makes outlines out of the straight text. And the reason it does that is because this warp is a temporary effect, and it doesn't permanently affect the text until we expand it. So I'm going to undo that and not use that method. And there's another method that will actually make our warp permanent, and it'll also convert our text to outlines. And that next step is called, it's under Object, and it's called Expand Appearance. And you'll see that on your steps for warp text. So any effect that you need to expand and make permanent, you can use Expand Appearance. Whether you have Expand or Expand Appearance, either one should do the trick. So I'm going to use Expand Appearance, and when you do that right away, you can tell it looks like when we did create outlines. It makes the text with the anchor points on them, and it's permanent. There's no more line there. So this is all we want. Now for step 3 of this, or our next step, we'll have to look at the sheet to see which order we're going on. But the next step of this, just like when we did straight text, is we're going to have to use a compound path. That'll keep my path together in one big outline going around it, rather than individual outlines. And I'll just show this. One thing I'll show real quick, just so you see this, is that if I just went to Object, Object Path, Offset Path. If I did it without making it a compound path, if I just did an offset path, and I'll make this 0.10 like we did last time, what you'll see is it actually makes paths around each letter, and it makes it very difficult to edit later on because you have to ungroup the letters. And then you would even use a pathfinder to join them together. It's just a hassle. So there's one step that if we just go and do Object, Compound Path Make, and right now it didn't. Sometimes it'll take the color away, sometimes it won't, depending if you had recolored it. And it doesn't look any different, but the fact that you make a compound path, now when we do Offset Path, it'll keep everything together in one single path going around these letters. So I'm going to do that next. Object, Path, Offset Path, and I'll do the same distance, and I'll try to, I'll do it like this one down here. I think I had the first one, the white one, a little shorter, so it was like 05. I'll hit OK. And then I'll do another one. There's my, you can see I have multiple paths here. They're all the same color. I could even make this outer one, well, I'm not going to change colors yet until I do some more. But remember the outer one we did 0.10 from the original one. So I could do one here from the original one. I'll click on the inside one. Or, you know, and actually this is in front. So maybe I'll do the outside one, but I'm only going to do it the same distance. So I'm going to do Object, Path, Offset Path. I'll do this one also 0.05 because last time we did this, the inner one last, and it was, and we did it a little distance. So we do want it the full distance away from the full one. So you'll see what I mean when I do it. Okay, there's my next one, which actually will be yellow, and I'll color it yellow right away. And I'll make one more by clicking on the yellow. Object, Path, Offset Path. And I'll also do this one the same distance away, 0.10, because that's the distance we did on the other ones. Okay, and then that one I'll fill with black. And the most inner one I'll fill with blue. And the second one, outside the most inner path, I'll fill with white. And that way I don't use any strokes at all. There's no strokes on anything. You can see it has the same look, and we have, you know, in terms of paths, we have a blue path, which is 1, a white path, which is 2, a yellow path, which is 3. Click on the edge there. There's my third path, and the black path, which is 4. So we have actually 1 inner path and then 3 offset paths that are additional to that to get this effect. And you could do all kinds of things. You could go here and put a shadow. That's an effect, you know. Object stylized drop shadow. I'll just put a default on there. There's my drop shadow, and you could do something like that. Sometimes gives a nicer look when you're showing off your artwork a little bit more. But or if you need to take that off, remember, just like the warp, the drop shadow is an effect that shows up in appearance. So I could go over here to drop shadow and hit the trash can and get rid of that. So again, this is the offset path process for arch text. And if I go back to this, and I'll move over here, the sheet that you have, and I'll zoom out a little bit, the sheet that you have for arch text, you start the same way, use your straight text, but instead of create out, and then you do your warp, which is under effects, but instead of creating outlines, whereas on this one you did create outlines, this one you can do expand appearance. It'll do the same thing, but it's just to expand appearance, and it's because we used a warp. Then you still have to do, this step is the most important one not to forget, is compound path, and then you're going to just do your multiple offset paths at different distances. So, you know, I recommend experimenting a little bit with trying different colors. You could use gradients inside these paths. You could do anything you want. You can't typically put a gradient on text, but you can put gradients on these paths. And you can do anything you want. Experiment with the warp, experiment with the text a little bit, but remember to use nice contrasting colors, warms and cools that really work nice together. For this project, and again, for this project you're going to use all different kinds of animals in here from the sheet that I'll give you, you know, choices for your mascot. You are not necessarily going to use the sharks. That's just an example I used because we already had done that shark thing, you know, in class with one of our other examples. So we could then put our shark in the middle there and have it be our logo and incorporate the same colors. Keep in mind you could use offset paths on graphics too. It's not just on, you know, any kind of path you could put an offset path. So you could have an animal, a shark, or anything and do the same kind of outlines that go around it, you know, as you are doing with text. Matter of fact, that's why we made text paths in the first place. So I'm going to stop there, and you're going to have, you know, notes for that. You'll have those steps, that PDF that I just showed you, the one over here. And you are going to have to practice a little bit with that, but hopefully this demo will help out just a little bit more.